welcome to Squadron Officer School. Let me start by asking you a question. Are you a hedgehog or are you a fox? I'll explain the difference in a moment, but here's a hint. The metaphor goes back to the times of ancient Greece. I'm Colonel Jason True, and given my affinity for esoteric Greek references, it isn't a surprise that I was given the call sign Toga during my first operational F-15 assignment. I've had multiple assignments in the F-15 and the T-6 before I came to Air University. I've been part of the Squadron Officer School team specifically for almost 2.5 years now. First as a squadron commander, fresh from getting my PhD, then as the dean, and now serving as the vice commandant. As you may have heard from your peers or supervisors, we've been busy reimagining our program since August of 2019, starting with a new mission and vision statement to enhance air and space-minded leaders primed to prevail in competitive environments. With that strategic aim as our guide, SOS faculty have been working tirelessly to gather ideas from other PME courses, but also from academia, from industry, and even from past students in order to make this course more effective, more relevant, and now more flexible in order to operate virtually. In fact, what we've done during the pandemic is not just move our course to an online environment. In other words, we didn't just simply take a step sideways. We moved diagonally. We used the friction of this challenging environment as attraction in order to do things not just differently, but better. The result is a new program that preserved the best of our previous curriculum, added new content based on our research into best practices for adult education, and rearranged the course into a more coherent flow. There are 3 phases in SOS, each build upon the other with leadership, then human-centered design, and then finally joint warfare. The first section will focus on leadership, the art of influence. This phase is designed to help you hone a deeper understanding of yourself, what makes you stronger, and then apply that same mindset of empathy and curiosity and awareness to your team, and what makes us stronger together. This is the foundation for everything else you will do in the course, and I would argue it's the foundation for everything you will achieve in your career. After diving into how to build highly effective teams using foundational leadership principles, you'll move to the second phase, which is accelerating change and solving problems together. And these modules, which we call strategic design, you will apply the team building techniques and leadership behaviors you learned earlier to solve problems in creative and collaborative exercises. While some of the phrases you'll hear, phrases such as design thinking and human-centered design, may seem unfamiliar or maybe even inapplicable to defense professionals, these are accessible, validated, effective techniques that 1, coincide with leadership principles, and 2, are being adapted to encourage innovation across organizations worldwide, including militaries. The third and final phase covers your last 2 weeks at SOS. You'll pivot from thinking about day-to-day problems that all leaders face to issues that are more broad, but apply to our whole profession, the profession of arms. And if anything, our profession faces an increasingly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous operating environment, and one in which, as the National Defense Strategy reminds us, we have no right to win. Indeed, prevailing in this competitive environment is not just about winning battles at all. It is about realizing a continuing advantage in the context of joint, all-domain operations across a spectrum of activities that often exists somewhere between this false dichotomy of pure peace and formal war. And these conversations about gray zone warfare and great power competition, they may seem distant to some of you. It may seem irrelevant. Trust me, it is not. Whether you have realized it yet or not, the world we live in, the world you will work in as you continue your service to this nation, that world has changed, and we need a new paradigm. We must adapt a new way of thinking, or we will lose. Many of you are undoubtedly aware of this shift, but we need to share that awareness broadly across both the Air Force and the Space Force, regardless of your job. In other words, we need everyone to understand what it means to be air-minded and space-minded. And I'll give you a hint. Those terms probably mean more than what you think they mean. The real meaning is more broad, more relevant, and more important. To re-emphasize this idea that what we do matters, regardless of our job, I'd like to relate a small story. The setting is the early 1960s. We are in a space race with the Soviet Union, and President John F. Kennedy has already set the ambitious goal to land an American on the moon before the decade is out. As the story goes, the young president was visiting a NASA facility He came across a janitor mopping the floor. And the president asked, "So what do you do here?" The janitor said, "I'm helping put an American on the moon." What you are doing here, what you are doing, regardless of the task, is having the same strategic effect. I know it may seem redundant or mundane or disconnected from geopolitical competition, but what you're doing is actually helping secure our nation against real threats. That's a big leap into global issues if you struggle to wrap your mind around the small daily problems. So we've got to talk about that before we talk about the big issues. And indeed, those small daily problems that you're learning to tackle in the design course will actually have a strategic effect if we can do enough of these innovations in your units. And that's what we're hoping to equip you with. But even solutions to those small daily problems will escape you unless you understand others on your team. And to bring us back full circle to the start, the foundation for understanding and leading others is to understand and lead yourself first. So that's the logical starting point of our curriculum. But it's not actually the real starting point for your own journey. The real point of departure is the decision you'll have to make on your own to enhance your own performance so you leave SOS better than when you started by virtue of your own attitude and effort. And it can be daunting. In fact, if you're not at least a little concerned about your ability to live up to this challenge, then you're probably not taking it seriously enough. But for those who do, those who feel that slight sense of uncertainty and insecurity about their ability to excel here, here's the good news. You already know how to work hard. You are already well on your way to mastering whatever it is that you do in your daily life. Now, of course, without any less effort to those tactical issues of building expertise in that domain, now you need to begin to apply that same work ethic in a broader, more strategic sense. And this brings us back to my original question. Are you a hedgehog or a fox? The question comes from an ancient Greek poet who wrote, "The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing." So let me explain briefly how that line has been interpreted, at least by the writer Isaiah Berlin, who wrote that those words mark one of the deepest differences which divide human beings in general. And this is what he wrote. "There exists a great chasm between those on one side who relate everything to a single central vision, and on the other, those who pursue many ends, often unrelated and even contradictory, who lead lives, perform acts, and entertain ideas that are centrifugal rather than centripetal. Those who seize upon the essence of a vast variety of experiences without seeking to fit those experiences and ideas into a single set of beliefs. The first kind of intellectual personality belongs to the hedgehogs, the second to the foxes." So the answer to the opening question, at least for the vast majority of students that have ever come through SOS, is that you are a hedgehog. But we need you to start thinking more like a fox, to open your eyes and your mind to what else goes on in our services, what else goes on in a world of joint all-domain operations. So yes, we need you to be a leader of yourself and of your team. And we need you to see where that team fits in with other teams. And SOS isn't designed to equip you with all the skills you need for that, but we're a great place to launch that journey. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Thank you for being here, and let's go become better together.
Welcome Class 20 Foxtrot to Squadron Officer School. I'm Colonel Ricky Mills, the Commandant of SOS. And I just want to start with the two most important words in our English dictionary, and that is thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your contributions. And thank you for being a part of Class 20 Foxtrot. I think I would be remiss if I didn't tell you why we are in a virtual and residence remote course offering. And that started with an assessment of the operating environment. And at the time, and still today, Maxwell Air Force Base remains at Health Protection Condition Charlie. We also had some significant planning factors to consider. Most of them were generated by public health recommendations. And for us, that planning factor started with every one of the students who had come to Maxwell Air Force Base would have had to spend their first 14 days self-quarantine in their billeting rooms. So that 14-day restriction of movement, or ROM, would have applied to any TDY student coming to Maxwell Air Force Base. Secondly, all the students would have been restricted to the base for the entire time in which they were here. And then thirdly, all of our students would have been kept together in their flights and separated from all the other flights. So given an assessment of what that student outcome and experience would have been, Air University as well as the AETC commander made the decision to make all TDY courses to Maxwell Air Force Base a virtual in-resident remote course offering. Now 20 Echo was the first time that we did it, so the class before was the first time we offered this. And I'm not aware of too many organizations that ever did anything perfectly right the first time that they did it, and we were no exceptions. So we have gathered a lot of lessons learned from that first course offering, and we've had a lot of staff as well as faculty members and instructors roll their sleeves up to do the hard work of applying those lessons learned to completely redesign and give you a much better product in the class that you're about to enter. We also had a change in the Air Force leadership with General Brown becoming the new Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and he made it clear that it was a priority for him that our airmen must be multi-capable and adaptable team builders. Our airmen must be innovative as well as courageous problem solvers, and our airmen must value diversity of thought, ingenuity, and initiative. And I'm sure that General Raymond, as the Chief of Space Operations, probably has a similar sentiment. So given that, to meet the CSAF's intent, as well as apply all the lessons learned from 20 Echo, we've completely redesigned the SOS experience, and here's how. We partnered with the Air Force's Leader Development Course for Squadron Command, and we are using some of their curriculum and some of their methodologies in order to create a student experience that's centered on trust, belonging, and meaningful connection. So in your first 2 weeks, you will learn to know yourself in order to lead yourself, and then you will learn to know your team in order to lead your team. And then in week 3 is when we start talking about accelerating change and problem solving. For those that have been paying attention to the narrative coming out of General Brown, he's very big on accelerating change. And then this idea of problem solving or design thinking, the former Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Goldfein, used to constantly tell during his base visits and to the field that, hey, don't wait for the Air Force to solve our problems. And so he was counting on all of us, all of you, to not just identify problems, but help our Air Force solve those problems. And so in week 3, we have partnered with Stanford, the University of Michigan, as well as the Joint Special Operations University to offer you some leading edge innovation techniques, as well as some problem solving methodologies. And then we'll give you the opportunity to explore, to prototype, and then to test a diverse set of ideas that come from you and your teammates. And then in week 4 is about joint warfare. And in this block, these last 2 weeks, you're gonna learn how all this fits into what our business is. You're gonna learn some basic fundamentals of great power competition, and then you're gonna learn how the U.S. Air Force, as well as the U.S. Space Force, fits into that joint fight. And then I guess I'll end with, what are my expectations of you during these next 5 weeks? And for me, it's really simple. I've used this ACE concept before it became Ask, Care, Escort. And for me, my A is attitude, C is choice, C are choices, and the E is effort. So for attitude, I expect you guys to have a positive, upbeat attitude and to have a growth mindset. For choices, I expect you to maximize your learning by actually applying some of the things that neuroscience has now tested that actually works to maximize learning. And that is to get your sleep, concentrate on your nutrition, as well as get your exercise. I also ask you to make the choice to be open-minded, to make the choice to concentrate on self-reflection as well as self-improvement. And then to also consider joining our Air University Advanced Research Elective, as well as our widely acclaimed think tank elective. And the last thing is effort. I've told you all the universities and other organizations that we've partnered with to give you the best education that we can. And the only ask and the only cost of admission is your effort. So if you can do those 3 things, have a positive attitude, make good choices, and bring a high level of effort, I can guarantee you on the back end of these 5 weeks, you will leave as a better officer, as a better leader, and as a better person. So if I can just end with the way I started by saying thank you again. I know our instructors are extremely excited and have been waiting for you. And I wish you all the best in Class 20 Foxtrot. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay connected.